Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel and welcome to my April wrap-up. We are going to do this casually, we're gonna have fun, we're gonna chat about the books I read this month, we're gonna chat a bit about what I watched, what I've enjoyed. Let's just jump right into it, I think. As always, let's start with some reading stats. Overall, April was a pretty good reading month, although I do feel like I did my best reading at the start of the month and then it sort of slowed down throughout the month and to the second half of the month. And I feel like this is a pattern with my reading, that at the start of the month I'm so excited about my new challenges, my new TBR, and then it sort of starts to slow down. I do feel like I read more during the first 2 weeks of each month compared to the rest of the month. In April, I read a total of 9 books, which is great because it's actually a tie so far this year with my best reading month, which was January, I think. It adds up to 1,839 pages, which is more than last month, so March. And in audiobooks, it adds up to 24 hours and 30 minutes. If you look at genre, 3 of the books I read were romances, 1 book was a mystery, 1 book was a horror, 2 books were non-fictions, 1 book was a sci-fi and 1 book was a thriller. No fantasies. That's odd. Rating-wise, I gave 1 book 2 stars, 1 book 3 stars, 5 books 4 stars and 2 books 5 stars. So it was a very solid reading month actually. And that brings us to an average of 3.89 in rating, which is really good and probably the highest average I have had so far for a month this year. I'm just gonna do this in whatever order I want, okay? Cool. Let's start by talking about these 3 books. In April, I challenged myself to catch up on all my Afterlight books. Afterlight is a book subscription by Illumicrate, where you now bi-monthly get an adult romance book. I haven't really been reading those romance books, so I made it my mission for the first week of April to read the ones I had not yet read. I started with For Her Consideration, which was our March book from Afterlight. Honestly, because this was the one I vibed with the most when I read the plot and like when I looked at it, because it's beautiful, it has stenciled edges, it has a gorgeous cover, it's sapphic, it's stunning underneath the dust jacket as well, so I was super excited about this. In this one we are following Nina and Emery. Emery Fox is an up-and-coming actress basically, and Nina, she works for a management company and she's like a ghostwriter of celebrities' emails. The thing is, this is a story that takes place in Hollywood, it's sapphic, it's about someone dating a celebrity. Sounds like it's gonna be a fun time, exciting, thrilling, spicy. It was quite boring. I was quite disappointed by this one. Unfortunately, I didn't want to. I was so excited about this. The things that disappointed me were that I felt like it was quite mundane, quite basic, nothing major ever really happened. The characters weren't really that special. Although they were cute as a couple, there really wasn't that much more to them. I also felt like if you're gonna write a story about dating a celebrity in Hollywood, make it epic, make it fun, make it big. Don't make it like oh, she wasn't an A-list or even a B or C-list celebrity, she was like a D-list or whatever, and then have like a ghostwriter for emails. I'm sure that job exists, but like, you can make it a bit more exciting. I feel like this wasn't exciting, this wasn't fun. And then there's a part like by the end of the book that's just right up depressing, that we didn't need, or they could have put it earlier in the story. It was an incredibly quick read. I read it within 2 days basically. I didn't like the story and how the execution of the story was. I gave it 2.5 stars but rounded it down to 2 on Goodreads. The next Afterlight book I picked up was Exes and O by Amy Lea. This one I loved. I loved every minute of reading this one. It was so much fun. This is a story about Tara, who moves into a new apartment and she gets Trevor, a firefighter, as her roommate. Tara loves romance novels, she loves romance, she reads a lot, she's a bookstagrammer and booktuber kinda, which is a lot of fun as well. She wants to find the one, but she's not doing great with dating apps and stuff, so she actually decides to take a chance on finding her second chance romance, and she revisits all of her previous exes. To her help, she has Trevor, her roommate. He is someone that's just interested in like one night stands. He's not looking for anything serious. He's sort of playboy-esque. He helps her out. He helps her to flirt and like how she should text the guys and so on. It's such a solid friendship and such great banter. I love this. I was obsessed with this. I haven't read the first one in the series. The first one is set on You, so it's like the influencer series or something, but I'm so excited to read that one now. But I love this. I love the banter. Trevor was so freaking hot. I love Tara as a character. I love the relationship. I love the story. The book nerd angle to it as well. It was great. It was a good time. I highly, highly recommend this. If you're looking for a feel-good, happy, solid, bantery type of a romance, look no further because this is the one. High 5-star. One of my favorite reads so far this year, to be fair. Like currently in my top 3, I think. Final Afterlife book that I read was You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emery. This one is quite different, I would say. It's Akwaeke Emery's first romance. Typically they write more fabulistic, fantastical, fantasy-esque sort of novels. This was their first romance. It's about Faye, who 5 years ago lost her fiance and she's trying to get back into dating. She dates around a bit and she meets this really great guy who flies her off to the Caribbean islands. Things develop from there, basically. The writing and prose in this one is beautiful. Akwaeke Emery's writing is stunning, out of this world. I have really enjoyed their writing before, so no surprises there. The characters are quite fun as well. It was quite bold in like how they speak and talk and like are, I guess. But it was fun. I'm not sure if I 100% vibe with the actual plot. Perhaps just the plot and the tropes of the story isn't for me. Stunning writing, stunning scenery, great characterization as well. And I really did enjoy it. Even though I didn't love it, I wasn't obsessed. Some things I just couldn't stand by or I didn't vibe with. I liked a lot of it, so I gave it 4 stars. Let's mix it up with some audiobooks. I listened to Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Sutanto. It's the same author as the one who wrote Dial A for Aunties, which I loved, especially the first book. So in this one we are following an older lady. She runs a tea shop and one day she finds a dead man in her tea shop. And she decides to solve this mystery by herself. So she basically gathers up all of the suspects and starts to question them, starts to hang out with them, makes them food. And it's like a typical grandmother type of person for them. It is fun, it is entertaining. I did not love it as much as the Aunties series. It is a bit wacky. It's a good solid time. I didn't mind it, I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. Nothing outstanding to me. I was a bit confused at times. I didn't really keep up with the characters. I wasn't obsessed with any of the characters, not even Vera, unfortunately. But still a solid book. I also listened to So Happy For You by Celia Laskey. This story is sort of like a thriller that takes place in a world very similar to ours, but a bit more dystopic, maybe? But like, it's not futuristic, it's just that basically we are reimagining our world if we had a very different view on marriage today. In the society or the world where this character lives, you are definitely encouraged to get married as soon as possible. If you're not married by the age you are 30 or 35, you are considered to be rotten, and especially women are pressured to get married. It's the women that need to adjust, and for the wedding, the bride is encouraged to do a bunch of like charms and witchy stuff in order to ensure that she will have a good marriage. So we're following 2 characters. They used to be best friends in like high school and university, but then they sort of drifted apart. But one of the ladies is getting married and she's asking her old best friend to be her bridesmaid. The best friend is very reluctant to this because she doesn't really believe in being pressured to get married and like how society does it today, and she doesn't feel like she's the right person to be a bridesmaid for her old friend, but she still says yes. So we're following like the bridal party with all the preparations and the bachelorette party and then the wedding itself. It has quite the atmosphere. you know from the first chapter something's gonna happen, something's gonna go down between these two characters. I found this one to be really interesting actually. I liked the main character. I think her name is Robin actually. I liked her. I thought she was cool, she had a lot of spunk, she had a lot of opinions. I liked the vibes of the story, I liked the writing. I was very invested in it, and I enjoyed hearing about this more dystopic sort of society, or this society that is very similar to ours but with such a different view on marriage than today. I like those types of stories actually, when we go the opposite of the progressive way. I like that comparison because I always feel like overall, like now I'm getting deep here, but I feel like in our society, I feel like we're on the edge of the blade and we can tip over at any side. Either we can become super progressive and accepting and like everything we want, or we can lean over to the opposite side and become more conservative, more strict, and go in the opposite direction of everything we want. And I feel like we're constantly, today, in our world, are constantly on this edge of where we will lean. So I think it's so interesting to hear about what might be, or what could have been, if we were not to fight for this progressive society that we want. I like those stories. I think it's super interesting. I really like this book actually. I thought it was great. I gave it 4.5 stars. Also, in the middle of April, I got this sudden urge to read some poetry, so I actually picked up Flux by Orion, Carloto and reread this, because I read it about 3 years ago, I think, but I reread it now, I re-tabbed it, I even made some doodles in it and underlined some parts that I liked and so on. I wanted to read some poetry, and this is also one of the few poetry books I own, although I wish to own more. So this was what I had at hand. But also, when I read this, I think I read this back in 2020. And now I'm reading it in 2023. I have experienced a bit more, I would say, a few more things. So I was very intrigued in seeing if I could possibly relate to some of the poems in this one more, or if this book would fall under the case of being too modern, too simplistic, because it definitely is more modern poetry. But I'm happy to say that I actually really like this, and I reread it as well. It was right for me to read it at the time. There are definitely some poems and parts I really like, and I actually upped my rating of it. So when I read it for the first time, I gave it 3 stars. This time around, I gave it 4 stars. So already in the foreword, Orion is writing a bit about this book and where it came from, and then she writes, "So here I am, 1 year on, and deeply and madly in love with the woman whom I've become." And I love that part. I even made a little heart for that one. I had a good time reading this, and I'm definitely in the mood to read more poetry this year, which I never expected. A book I finally picked up in April was The Martian by Weir. This is an adult sci-fi about a man who gets stuck on Mars. Mark Watney, the main character, is on Mars together with 5 other people for a mission. They are supposed to gather information about Mars. An accident occurs, or a storm happens. Everyone leaves, but he doesn't make it, and he's stuck alone on Mars. Since he is an astronaut, an engineer, a biologist, he, to quote him, sciences the shit out of the situation in order to make sure he survives so that he can get rescued and return to Earth. I thought this was so much fun. First of all, main character Mark Watney. The story is mainly told, or half told, through his kind of a diary of his. So he writes down his thoughts and logs everything and so on. He is hilarious. He is so much fun. I think he's a great character. It's so impressive how he can stay in such high spirits when he goes through this entire thing. Also, I loved the sciencey and nerdy parts of this. I loved seeing all of the numbers of him calculating how much potatoes he can grow through a year, or how he is supposed to use chemistry in order to make water in space. I love that. I really like that we got into the details of everything. When I read some of the reviews, I understand that some people might find it a bit boring. As someone who studied engineering and is a fan of science and math and all of that, I thought this was great. I liked it a lot, and I was so invested in it. I really, really liked this one. I had watched the movie before, I knew the story, but still, this one inspired me to rewatch the movie, and it holds up. It's also really good, but the book is actually a lot better. So if you haven't read this one yet, I highly recommend it. I get the hype, it makes sense. Second to last book I read in April was You're That Bitch by Bretman Rock. This is a memoir by Bretman Rock, and I listened to this one as an audiobook. Bretman narrates it himself. It's a lot about them sharing their experience from growing up in the Philippines to moving to America and Hawaii and growing up there, how they became like such an internet phenomenon, how he has sort of become a trailblazer for both queer people, non-binary people, Filipinos, the American dream. I wouldn't say you need to be a fan of Bretman Rock in order to read this book and enjoy it, but she's definitely telling it with her voice. There's a lot of swearing, there's a lot of random tangents, sometimes explicit content. There's definitely Bretman's voice in this book, both in audio format and I'm guessing on paper. I really appreciated this. I loved hearing about their experience growing up in the Philippines, how it was there coming to America. I was so happy to hear what a supportive family he had so that he could grow up being his true authentic self. And I actually also really appreciated a lot of the advice that she shared throughout the book, basically. If you're wondering about the different pronouns, it's because Bretman Rock is like non-binary, genderqueer, identifies with all of the pronouns, so that is why. He had a bunch of solid advice for like friendships and dealing with family and how to handle money and like being true to yourself, and I liked this. It was entertaining, it made me smile, it made me snort. It definitely was inspiring as well. So I gave it a 4-star. Not obsessed with it, because sometimes, and I'm certain he knows this himself, he can be a tad bit too much, but I still really liked it. Final book I read in April and finished in April was A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Another really quick read. Incredibly quick, actually. This is like a horror romance and a retelling of Dracula, or Dracula's first wife. They never say it's Dracula, but you know it's Dracula. So we are following Constanta as she meets Dracula, is turned, falls in love, and then it's just a story throughout the centuries. It's queer. We have a poly relationship, or multiple poly relationships in this one. I thought the writing was beautiful and really good. I liked the pacing a lot. The pacing of the book was really, really good. Especially, as I mentioned, we went through the centuries in a way I really liked. Wasn't obsessed with the characters. I liked them. I didn't love them. We have an epilogue in this book that I didn't quite get because it's sort of like a bonus chapter, but I don't understand why we got that chapter from that character's point of view. I felt like that was unnecessary. The book ended fine the way it did. We didn't need another chapter. Incredibly quick read, not even 300 pages. Beautiful writing. Beautiful writing. I think a lot of people could really like this one. Tad bit gory, not overly gory, not overly horror-esque, but definitely like gothic vibes. A lot of trigger warnings, so I'm just gonna mention them because they actually share them in the book. So, the book contains depictions of emotional, verbal and physical intimate partner abuse, gaslighting, war, famine and plague, blood and gore, consensual sexual content, self-harm, body horror, violence and murder, alcohol use, depression and mania. And it also contains brief references to sexual assault, although not directed at any named character, drug use and also drowning. If you have been intrigued by this book, definitely pick it up. It's worth it. I recommend it. And those are the 9 books that I read in April. Now, let's just quickly mention a few other things I have enjoyed. I didn't watch that many movies or shows in April. What I watched was 2 music documentaries. I watched Demi Lovato's documentary on YouTube called Dancing with the Devil. That one was great. It was really freaking good. It's basically her telling us about her 2018 overdose and what led up to it, the effects of it, all of that. I also watched Louis Capaldi's documentary that was, I think it's fairly new. It was released in March or April. Really good as well. It's about him feeling the pressure of living up to his song that went viral by creating a new amazing album, and like everything he experienced in regards to like stress and anxiety and mental health and so on. Didn't love it as much. It's not as good. I preferred Demi's documentary. I also watched 2 movies. I was on a Disney Channel sort of vibe in April. So I watched Hannah Montana the movie and Jump In both in one day. Hannah Montana the movie, not as good as I remember. Obviously we have declined, we have some great musical moments, but it's not that funny. It really isn't. You can tell it's made for kids, and you can tell that there probably was a different type of humor back in the day. The first half is quite bad. It gets better with time. The second half of the film is much, much better. Didn't love it though, not obsessed anymore. Jump In though, on the other side, still incredible. Love this one so much. It's Corbin Bleu doing double dutch and boxing, and it's so freaking cool. Still love the music. It's also Keke Palmer. Super good. Recommend it if you haven't watched it. I feel like it's super underrated. It feels so natural. It's still so good. It holds up. TV show wise, I don't think I watched that much. Like, I'm keeping up with Masked Singer. I've been watching Taskmaster, the Swedish Taskmaster, with my mom. I think I finished Love is Blind in April. Weird season, not my favorite season. And me and my friend are watching, or rewatching together actually, Personal Taste, which is a kind of old Korean drama, but we're obsessed. It's Lee Min-ho, and it's so good. It's so good. Music-wise, haven't really been any albums I've been obsessed with, but I've been listening a lot to Demi Lovato, because once again, my Disney Channel kick and watching her documentary really spurred me on to listen to her music, and she's great. She has a great voice, actually. And I've also been listening to Arctic Monkeys, because I went and saw Arctic Monkeys on April 29th, which was epic. They sound just like the records. They are so good live. That's it for this April wrap-up. My voice is giving up. I've talked about everything I can talk about, so now I'm just gonna shut up and be quiet for the rest of the night. Please let me know if you have read any of the books that I talked about or seen any of the things I mentioned. I would love to hear about it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Please take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye!